Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the best supports in the game right now and discuss a little bit about what makes them the best supports in the game. Now I think the definition of a support has changed a lot in Dokkan because of the mechanics and kind of just functionalities of units now. Just giving attack and defense to a rotation for me is no longer what I would consider a pure support. Back in the day, if a unit gave key and gave attack and defense, that was it. They were a support. Congratulations, well done. Now there's a lot of alternative mechanics that units can do that support a team big time. Creation of orbs, creation of rainbow orbs, creation of key, 2-turn support, active skills, healings, ghost dashes. They got to be defensively sound themselves. Like, I think there is definitely a big change in what I would classify as being the support functions. Now, in terms of like the best supports in the game, let's talk about my list. So at the top we have AGL SS3 Goku. I think anyone who disagrees with AGL SS3 Goku being at the top just hasn't used him. This guy does everything you need. He's got a heal on his active skill, he's got a giant form which prevents damage, he gives 70% defense, 10% damage reduction, he has a 2-turn support buff on his super attack. He is absolutely insane. Glorio also is similarly pretty nuts. Glorio gives a 3-turn support buff, so like it's unheard of. Basically, Glorio is giving your team a constant support buff. Like, Glorio basically makes your team operate with constant 50% buff, because as the third attacker in a turn, he gives all allies key +3 attack and defense of 50% for 3 turns. So he basically makes your team run with an extra 50%, like just right off the bat. He's really solid in that way, and he's just very good, and that itself is pretty crazy. Then when you factor in that he also has attack lowering and that he himself is incredibly solid, it's really good. Goku Youth is also similarly very good. He has his orb changing abilities. He also has the ability to provide damage reduction to the rest of the rotation. He has a 2-turn buff even though it's only 8%. And he's a pretty good support overall, which I think is great. The Goku, Gohan, and Trunks I think is a character that's kind of been lost a little bit, but I think overall is really good. Goku, Gohan, and Trunks is a very solid unit still, with a lot of support capabilities that can just do a lot of brilliant work on a lot of meta teams right now. They're unfortunate in that they don't fit currently under the 2 premier 10th anniversary units teams, so they don't fit necessarily on any of those teams outright, which is the only real shame. But generally speaking, they are still really good. They'll make a comeback. They give 50% attack, 3 key. They give allies a 2-turn 77% defensive buff, which is huge, and damage reduction of 15%. So that's very good. Like, they are a very crazy unit for that, and they do a ton of heavy lifting. The whole meme of this Goku doing heavy lifting can be traversed to them. They were kind of like the first unit to do it. They're even making Int Super Saiyan LR Goku really good ahead of his time. The big thing is nowadays, with like every unit almost giving key and attack and support and things like that, I think 2-turn buffs are very crucial. Orb changing is also very crucial with the amount of bosses that are changing orbs, but it's also the healing capabilities of units. Do they have a ghost dasher? Do they have some kind of active that's super unique and giving you a lot of good foundational support? Demon King Piccolo is a great free-to-play option. He's incredibly solid, really amazing free-to-play unit, one of the best supports in the game. Huge for extreme teams, 60%, which is massive, and he himself is great. It's super simple to use. Same with Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Superheroes has fallen off a little bit just in terms of damage, because it is lacking a little bit of damage. The Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 are still a great support unit. Tiny bit orb dependent, but other than that, they are great. 50% buff, great active skill, great standby skill. Lots of defensive mechanisms to work with, so they're pretty damn good. Then we come to a lot of the super easy A's. In fact, every single unit in this bottom row is a super easy A, because for some reason their main preference with super easy A's is to turn them into like kind of semi-supports. If you take a look at Perfect Cell, I would consider him a support. He gives a rotation, 40% defense, 20% critical hit chance. He also gives your opponents a debuff, which is huge, and he heals you. So from that perspective, he is a support. The same can be said of Gogeta, who also does a lot of support-based functionality. Like if you look at Super Gogeta, after his Super Easy A, gives all allies attack of 40%, Ki +2. He also has, obviously, that debuffing, so he has that greatly lowering attack and defense, which is huge. And yeah, basically he is incredibly solid, which I think is something that's pretty good. Out of this bottom rung, I would probably say the 3 best pure supports are probably Broly, Gohan, and Kid Buu. Broly is probably my favorite one so far. He does insane damage, he builds up really quickly, and he's actually a very good support because he gives Extreme Class allies 20% per Rainbow Key Sphere, so he can range anywhere from a 20% to 100% support. And he himself is pretty tanky. 50% damage reduction, builds up to like 700k defense. Very, very solid unit. And Ultimate Gohan as well, also incredibly good. A bit more pure support than, for example, a bit more pure support than maybe, for example, like into Gohan, but still really good. 30% for Superclass allies. If there's an extreme enemy, an additional 28%. He also has a ton of survivability. One thing I will say, there's a lot, like I mentioned, there's a lot of semi-sports. Like if you look at Tech Wuhan, right, he gives you 50% for all extreme class allies, which is huge. So he's also a great support unit. Of that I have no doubt. So it's super difficult to just say, oh, these are the best supports. There's also pure general banner support units. If you look at, say, for example, Strength Hercule. Strength Hercule is a really, really good support. He has evasion, he has high levels of damage reduction on his first attack. He's really, really strong, really solid, and he supports a great category. But he lacks flexibility in terms of teams. These units I like, largely because of the big stat pools they bring as DFEs and everything, but also because they on quite a few teams or quite a few meta teams. Hercule is technically on a meta team, but he's so limited that it does give some hindrances. Overall, I would probably say these guys, at least right now, are the supports I primarily pick, at least in terms of general content. There are lots of opportunities to be had with them. I think the scaling is just about right. Probably would, maybe separate them a little bit more, but I think overall they're really good. I think Kid Buu is one of the ones also that's really solid. Even if Kid Buu ever fades away, like functionally, defensively, and things like that, one thing I will say is that he does always have great merit as a support. Right now he is a 50% support and a 60% super support and a 70% extreme support, which is pretty crazy if you really, really think about it. Which I think is really, really good. Obviously he's a little bit health dependent and things like that, but I would say overall this list probably represents where I'm at least in terms of the support function. When you're looking for supports, try to base it on a couple things. Firstly, what is that unit giving me in the turn? They should be giving you key and defense. Anything else is just a bonus. Secondly, what do they do in this super attack? Do they attack lower? Do they stack? Is it going to help? Etc. Then look at their requirements. If a unit requires you to have too many things, so that could be a great support. Or if it does, then it's going to be a very limited support that's only going to work on 1 or 2 teams. That's something you are going to have to keep track of. That is something that you are going to have to base solely on what teams you have and what units you plan on using. But yeah, that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts on the best supports. There's tons of units that could have been in here. Like for example, I think, Strength Turles Army, always a unit you can bring into the fold. Strength B-Pan, also a unit that through sheer active alone is incredibly useful and free-to-play accessibility. Bubbly, same thing, free-to-play accessibility, great stuff. But yeah, that would be probably where I would say, at least for me, that's where I would rank these top supports right now. Let me know what you think and let me know what supports you wish you had, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.